Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a nice lunch and you avoided the sunburn with that very nice weather. Also, hope you all have your bracelet for tonight's party for those who are in New York and for all who are online. Welcome back as well. I am pleased to introduce Teresa Tung from Accenture and Kendall Clark, CEO of Stardog, for this afternoon's keynote. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so glad to be here with you all. My first time at this event. I've been to many semantic technology and knowledge graph conferences, but never this one, which is a little strange. My initials are KGC since I was born in 1969. And so when my team was preparing for this event, I was often confused. Are they talking about me? Are they talking about the event? I'm not going to Roosevelt. It was very confusing, but an example of semantics, perhaps. So we're going to talk. Teresa and I have asked her to join me. We'll be giving this together. Knowledge graph goes mainstream is the topic. So a very commercial talk at a somewhat technical conference. So I'm Kendall. Teresa is Teresa. We will start by making an announcement. You may have seen on LinkedIn today. Accenture and Stardog have partnered. Accenture has made a investment in our company, and we're excited about that. We've been building a partnership, and we're excited for what comes next. And Teresa, you want to say anything about the partnership?
Yeah, no, it is that coming mainstream, right? So we are really excited about it. Not just forcing Kendall to read that. We've been working together for a long time, and just a lot of the trends that we're seeing today, data products, data mesh, large language models, all of this is made better with knowledge graphs.
Yes, better together, I think, is the theme. Yeah, she didn't just force me to read it. She forced me to write it too. But yes, we're excited, and yeah, I thought it was appropriate given that announcement that Teresa and I do this talk together, largely because we want to sort of make this argument that this community and the technology this community has been building and other communities allied with it is mainstream and ready for prime time, and sort of left this place where we came from and going to a new place. But I do like to start my talks by saying what I'm not going to talk about. Maybe this is perverse, but it appeals to my sense of humor to begin where I'm not going to go. And that is, those are potatoes, by the way, in case anybody is wondering. There's an old joke, potato, potato, tomato, tomato, let's call the whole thing off. I know Deb knows this, right? Everybody knows this. So what I'm not going to talk about, and this is my gesture at, I'm not going to try to convince you that a knowledge graph is different or better than a semantic layer, but that's really the same as a graph database. But isn't that a triple store? One knows this spiel. He's heard it before, right? So ironically, I don't want to talk about semantics at a conference that's about semantics. And I don't want to talk about that because it's too, it looks the wrong way. I want to look, and we want to look in partnership with Accenture over there where the big customers are, not internally in this community, which, yeah, it's just a perspective that we want to adopt, that among friends, we won't quibble about the meanings of terms, but we'll work together to build something important. So knowledge graph is now mainstream, has come mainstream. So I'll talk about a few indicators. I won't say much about the growing startup space, the growing vendor space. You guys have seen the offerings that we all have out there. There's new faces. Welcome to the relational AI guys. They're new here. That's exciting. This space has seen a lot of investment, and it's seen a lot of startups. And so I'm not going to say much about that, but that's a background factor. I think that matters when we're trying to decide if this area has grown up and has entered the mainstream. What I do want to talk about is the analysts. I want to just pick on Gartner a little bit, or not pick on them. I want to adopt their viewpoint because I think it's correct. So Gartner talks about knowledge graphs being on the 2023 impact, and that's in the 1 to 3 year ring. I know you guys maybe can't see this, but that gray ring near the I guess that thing in the middle is an egg or the sun or something, the orange thing. I'll say I don't know what Edge AI is exactly, but it's more ready to go than the Stardog. I bet if they redid this, all the model stuff would be closer in because of the recent advances with LLMs and ChatGPT. But the key point there is that knowledge graphs are adjacent to success 1 to 3 years. 1 to 3 years is a typical life cycle for a big implementation. So we think that view is correct, and it doesn't reflect any particular vendor's view. It's just Gartner looking at the whole market, and I think this is important. So I also want to push in on this a little bit. This is a remarkable quote. It's not an official Gartner quote, right? This is just Mark Beyer on LinkedIn. But Mark Beyer, if you guys know the Gartner space, if you know Mark Beyer, a very, very influential analyst, both in Gartner, well, just everywhere. Mark Beyer's, I don't know who else is like Mark Beyer. He's kind of a sui generis in that way. And I won't read this quote. I'm hopeful that you're all reading this quote. But the point of this quote is that knowledge graph technology in particular plays a very critical role in data management, enterprise data management. And that's a little bit surprising, frankly, because knowledge management and data management traditionally were just not the same thing. But I'll talk at the end about how I think these are two things that are converging. And then, in fact, we're starting to see a lot of convergence in this space and in the mainstream. So Mark Beyer and Gartner certainly believe that this technology is mainstream. And we agree with them, and so does Teresa. So, Teresa, you're
Okay, thanks, Kendall. So knowledge graphs are mainstream. So we've been looking at knowledge graphs working with KGC since its birth, working with Stardog for many years. And I would like to say we put our money where our mouth is, both with the investment, but we are also using knowledge graphs and using Stardog in particular across our business and have done so for years. So why? So it's not a technology buy. It just makes our business more efficient. It allows us to make decisions. So start with things like the what. What do we have? If you think about our business, we're selling things, right? So what do we have to sell? So as we create new offers in the space, so if there's a new large language models with NVIDIA, how do you figure out where all the places that would apply? And then as people create their initial proofs of concepts and do their initial pilots, how do you scale it to the rest of the business? We are over 700,000 in terms of people, right, across the globe. So how do you get 700,000 people to know what we have to offer? So one is the what, being able to have us publish these offerings that we have, including things that are just starting, like with the large language models, and being able to scale that across the company. Two is the so what. So what, is happening? What are the patterns about our teams and our business that are working really well, right? So the teams that are picking up offerings that are making the most money, what are they doing? And can we use those patterns to learn from and then to repeat that in a programmatic way? And finally, the what if. So we've connected the knowledge graphs, not just with data, but with simulations. So creating an enterprise digital twin that allows us to ask questions like, what if I change some of our profitability metrics per project? What does that look like on our business? What if I change some of the training that we train our people with? How does that impact our ability to deliver? Right. So these three ways are ways that we're applying knowledge graphs today. And it's part of this new digital core. So if we think about the modern data stack, I would say that the one that people tend to think about, with the data lake in the middle, that's not a modern data stack of today. Modern data stack has knowledge graphs. Modern data stack has foundational models. Modern data stack has things like metaverse type capabilities designed for multi-party compute. So just like the digital core has evolved over time, we heard the famous SMAC, right? Social Mobile Analytics Cloud. Now we're in a new sort of paradigm where metaverse, where generative AI move towards foundational models, move towards computing all the way into the edge, into our everyday spaces, our cars, our restaurants, our hotels. That's really a new stack, and you need something new to keep up with it. And so indeed, knowledge graphs are unlocking all of this capability. So we do a yearly vision. It's a research that Accenture commissions. It's market research. And we interviewed all the technology buyers across many industries. And in this case, you see their priorities, right? Generative AI as part of artificial intelligence. Well, you can't have that without knowledge graphs. Knowledge graphs makes that better, right? So if you were to use, ask a question, like in retail now, you want to say, what product should I buy for our summer vacation? Using some of these language models that exist, knowing that shorts and swimsuits is probably what I need, and then matching it with my own domain data that might be captured in a knowledge graph of what the customer, Teresa, looks like and what the products that I have are, then I'm able to give an answer back, right? And then I can also use this to maintain my own knowledge graph and make that smarter through that interaction. Next generation computing, that compute that goes into your car, into your space, that has that large language model in a GPU maybe in the back, right? Or some specialized data flow architecture. That all needs a knowledge graph to be able to figure out all the ways you might optimize and use those resources. I have to say, by myself, I can barely figure out which, let's say, EC2 instance to run. There's so many of them, right? So having a knowledge graph figure out, based off of what you're trying to achieve, maybe a precision and accuracy, here's actually what you should be using. And as new capabilities come out, you can't test all the permutations, so being able to recommend. Metaverse, right, all the different models. And so clearly all of these capabilities for each knowledge graph is actually what you need to scale any of them. So let me give an example in intelligent digital twin, right? So just like what Accenture story, we've been working with a company, it's a products company, and they have a distribution network with warehouses. And in their warehouse, they use analytics. We help them with that today. And it's trying to predict, right, based off of what orders you need to fulfill, how do you do the schedules of the trucks to the bays and where you bring the products to. But things happen, right? Things happen where the products are not ready, the trucks are not there that you think are going to be there. There's a last minute order that needs to come in. So there's a lot of dynamics, and clearly there's a lot of things that change. And then these questions that people want to ask, right? Like, how do I change my dock scheduling? How do I change and prioritize the products that need to go out, right? So the way that we really look at knowledge graphs is, again, powering the business at the mainstream. It's trying to improve the on time, in full, efficiency of these warehouses. Can we reduce make it faster by 10% would be a great goal, right? So in this case, what we're looking at is a combination of technologies. So we're looking at a strategy that allows them to do some of this what if in their distribution center. You can only add so many robots until there's no space in that space, right? It's the AI-powered orchestration that helps you figure out what you should be doing when you ask these scenario questions. It is the simulation model that is simulating and figuring out what parameters you might want to seed the simulation model with. And then it is the automation, because at the end of the day, this has to be implemented within the warehouse. And so this is exactly what we've done, right? So we have these capabilities together. So you have the real-time visibility coming in from the data. You have the simulation that is simulating things at different levels. So it might be at the level of 3D models within the space that's simulating, can this area actually fit more things. It is simulation models in terms of event-based packet-like simulation to be able to see the throughput. It's the engineering process simulation. So it's all of these things in simulation. And then it's the automation, what really happens on the shop floor. And bringing this all together in the middle is that knowledge graph that's able to coordinate and where I can ask what-if questions. I can see if something changes, what's the next impact. So it's really driving the data to figure out the simulations that then drives the AI and drives the real in this loop. And so this is exactly what we did at Accenture as well, right? So this is a new pattern. So this is a new sort of way that uses all these capabilities to augment each other. And so where I want to leave us, before I hand it back, is another part of using these technologies. So knowledge graph makes all these technologies better, but these technologies also make knowledge graph possible. We've been looking at knowledge graphs for decades plus, and then it's always been hard. We don't have the data. Well, we have data products and data mesh now. Everybody's trying to publish not monolithic data systems, but publish the unique products that make sense. There's your data. Security was an issue. Well, if I have everything within the same place, there's a security issue around that. Well, now we have more multi-party compute where you have better ways to protect your data and how it's used, even through to the compute layer. We always had the hardest part, I thought. Well, it's too hard to build and maintain a model. Well, you could also use large language models to help get your initial schema, and maintain that model. So a lot of these capabilities now make it possible also to make knowledge graphs easier to implement. And that's part of why I believe it's mainstream today. Handing it back to Kendall.
Thanks, Teresa. Okay, so question I've been asking myself a lot. So this is a thing now, but why now? Why not 5 or 10 years ago? I know Deb's smiling because we can say, why not 15 years ago? So, I mean, I don't stress about this question because better late than never. This is the talk of homespun wisdom. I got potato, better late than never. But better late than never, right? But I do think it's worth thinking about this a little bit and trying to come up with an answer. And so these two quotes, one from IDC, one from Gartner, probably the most important thing about these quotes is their date, which is a little bit weird thing to say. I mean, like you're reading the quotes. I know you're taking in the quotes, but 2020 and 2021. So the question, why did it take so long, has a kind of hidden assumption, right? Like relative to when? When should we have started counting, right? My thesis is that in the world we live in now, which I like to call, with respect to data and analytics, the hybrid multi-cloud. It's not something I came up with. Lots of people call it that. But I like to talk about that because it gestures at the fact that not only do we have more data than we've ever had before, and we here just means like roughly civilization. I'm not talking about Stardog or RPI or Exxon or Shell. I'm just meaning everyone, right? There's a lot of data. We try to build systems that run on data. We try to the greatest extent possible to make data-driven decisions, economically, politically, from the point of view of policy. Legislation should look at data, right? Data is important. It's what distinguishes us as a species in some important sense. But so why now? And I think the answer is the best and highest use of knowledge graph technology is to be the data integration solution for this hybrid multi-cloud era that we're in, which is just to say, we did kind of build a technology in anticipation of its eventual usage, but we started building it at a time where we didn't need it exactly. Maybe this is a good thing since it took a long time, right? But if you think about this quote from IDC, like by 2023, which is now, 500 million digital apps and services. I don't even know what 500 million, I mean, that's just a stupendously large number. And maybe it's off by a factor of 10. Maybe it's only 50 million apps and services will have been developed. 90% of enterprises will migrate workloads to hybrid. Like, so this is just an extraordinarily large data integration problem. And that's what, in the end, knowledge graph is really best for. And relative to the sort of emergence of the actual need for this technology, I don't think it's taken that long, right? But it's existed for a good bit longer than that, at least a decade. And I think it's important to understand that what really makes a technology go mainstream is not luck, it's not good fortune, it's not even big, powerful organizations like Accenture. It's, can you solve a user problem? And can you solve it in a differentiated way? Can you solve it with good economics? And can you solve it repeatably? And that's the most important part. And in some sense, the world had to catch up to the problem we've been trying to solve. But you could always see that we were going to get there. I think now is the time. Okay, so what's coming next? And I've done this perfectly because they asked me to do this part of the talk, and I'm very allergic to future statements. I don't think they're worth a lot, but it's kind of it's a part of a keynote at a forward-looking conference, so I'm gonna try to satisfy expectations. So I do want to say super quickly, I'm just going to go through a set of things that we previously thought were sort of different and separate, and that they would be different and separate. But what's really happening now, in my opinion, is that they're converging. They're turning into the same thing. Maybe some mutated new hybrid thing, but there's this, we're in an era of convergence. And so I've already alluded, data management, knowledge management. These were just distinct things for the longest time. They're not anymore, right? They're the same thing. Lots of proofs for this. Informatica's big show is going on now. I see on LinkedIn, they've announced this Claire, this next generation AI platform to manage data. Data management and knowledge management are the same thing. Google got this started, and the rest of us are following in their tracks. Cloud and on-prem, not the same thing, but we're going to have both forever. This is what it means to be in this hybrid world. Now, in this world, I have on-prem in quotes because on-prem now doesn't mean, Greg and I were just talking about this before, we may have had a hot mic moment, Greg, they may have heard us. On-prem doesn't mean I lease the data center, right? It means the customer's operationally responsible for the system, right? But so cloud and on-prem, the cloud will not eat on-prem, on-prem will not eat cloud. We will always have hybrid environments in which data is in many, many, many places. This is a good thing for knowledge graph practitioners and for the technology. So this one is a little bit of a throwback to the history of artificial intelligence. I hope there's a few nerds who, yeah, I know where I know who knows this, but I want to try to explain it to everybody else. In the history of AI, which goes back to roughly 1935, let's call it, at least conceptually, there has always been this long-running debate between the scruffies and the neats. Okay, so the scruffies are the people who said, what will cause real artificial intelligence is statistical data, right? Statistics on data, that's what characterizes intelligence. And these other kind of nerds who were logicians said, no, 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 no. What characterizes human, or what characterizes intelligence is this rule-like symbolic reasoning. You know, Socrates is a man, all men are mortal, that thing. And it's just this perpetual war for 45 years. And in fact, what we see now, and I know the relational AI guy's nodding his head at this because he agrees with this as well, I'm quite certain. This is the real story about EKG and knowledge graph and LLM. It takes both statistical and logical inference, statistics and logic to manage a world and systems as complex as we find ourselves responsible for. So the message here is we're not in an either or, pick one and don't do the other. We're in a both and kind of situation. And it goes further, storage and virtualization. We've talked a lot in this community about graph databases and triple stores and where's the data. And there's a sort of other family of techniques around query federation, virtualization, play the data where it lays, Starburst. There's a growing tranche of companies who do this virtualization query federation thing in a relational system. And I think this is another place where we're going to have convergence. The future is very hybrid in nature. You need data. All data must be stored somewhere, of course, but typically no one cares where it's stored, except that the performance is acceptable, right? I'll go one more, data and metadata. Make some of my vendor friends happy. Ultimately, data and metadata are the same thing. I think we know that conceptually. But we also know that data without metadata is a financial and legal liability. And metadata without data is the card catalog in the library. It's interesting, but ultimately not very important. And we need to build systems that integrate and unify and feedback data and metadata, and knowledge graph is an ideal way to do that because of the properties of graphs. So I will end now with another quote and then one more announcement. Gartner believes companies that take the Accenture and Stardog approach, maybe I'll put it that way, will have less technical debt in their AI systems than those that don't. So the last thing I'll say, we've been making investments at Stardog in LLMs for about 6 months. And we just recently started talking about a new product or new part of our product called Stardog VoiceBox. I'm supposed to hit the button again so you can watch the fun video. We've been focusing on question answering, so making it possible for people just to ask questions of the knowledge graph without requiring any sparkle or query or anything. Just know something about your domain, ask a question, and get back an answer. And also working on, as Teresa gestured, the build, maintain the models, data models, and mappings. That problem I can report to you is much harder than the question answering problem, but we made good progress. There's a demo available at our booth, and we're excited to make some more investments, bring this out at the end of Q2 and help the whole industry flatten their implementation curve, cost of implementation for knowledge graphs. That is my last slide, and we have 4 minutes for Q&A.
We have 1 hot minute for
1 hot minute.
for Q&A.
I went longer. My
It's,
apologies. Yeah.
It was cool, the LLM app you showed, and knowing Pavel, who works on optimization on the core query answering engine, trying to gain a few microseconds on queries, and seeing the LLM
Pavel, I have
posing
to say,
for
I didn't know you knew
seconds.
Pavel. Pavel's training models on automatic query optimization. So this stuff's going to show up everywhere.
Very cool.
Are there any questions?
Very
We
cool.
have
Any
time
quick
for?
question? Very quick, Neha.
Just a very quick one. So is it using ChatGPT or is it different from ChatGPT?
It's not using ChatGPT. It's different from ChatGPT. OpenAI I'm not sure what business model they're pursuing, but it's not really consistent with our. We focus mostly on regulated industries, banks, pharmas, that sort of thing, and we're not able to pass their data to a third party. So this is models that we're. Now, I will say we've picked up foundational models from the open source where we have not built our own foundational model, but we're. Oh yeah, it's the same large language model technology. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Teresa, Kendall. All right. The 2 other rooms upstairs are opening again. I invite you to check your programs and make your choice.